Well, boys, the GSSR is coming in a few weeks, and now that we have all of the major banners of the year knocked out, I thought we'd go ahead and do a little GSSR guide because we've been talking about it a lot on stream. People are like, who are you summoning for on the GSSR? Should I summon on this banner, this one? What should I do? So I was like, you know what, let me just do a general, all-inclusive video. Let's just put it here so if someone has a question about the GSSR, they can just click on this video and hopefully answer their question. Now, you know, I kind of would just like to jump into this because I want to talk about this topic. It's a topic, for whatever reason, I really like talking about this. Like, in particular, the GSSR is always something that's, like, really fun to just talk about and discuss. So, like and subscribe, all that good stuff. You know, just links down in the description down below, blah, blah, blah. That's standard intro. You guys already know the deal. Let's just talk about the video, all right? Like, let's just talk about the GSSR because this is probably, like, one of the most high-value things that, you know, FGO ever puts out. Like, if you think about it, I mean, let's just talk about it. If you want 1 out of 4 of these like lancers right here, this is like the most value you'll ever get in all of FGO. Because if you think about it, when you do a multi and you want a specific character, you have a 1% chance of getting that character. But if you do a multi on the Lancer GSSR and you want a Reshkagal, well, not only are you guaranteed that like at least 1 5-star, that 5-star has a 1 in 4 chance or a 25% chance to be the 5-star that you want. So first and foremost, if you want a specific unit, try to find one with the smallest GSSR, which, I mean, in terms of like scaling, it goes like Lancer is the best value because it's 1 in 4, Rider is 1 in 5, then you have Archer, Caster, Assassin, Berserker are all 1 in 6, this one is 1 in 7, and then this one and Saber are 1 in 8. So those are the technically worst value if you want just one of those servants. But I believe Saber is like it's still like a 12.5% chance to get them. So even if, like, let's say you wanted Saber Astolfo, and this is crazy, Saber Astolfo's banner should still be out right now on the NA version of the game. If you did 1 multi on the Saber Astolfo banner, you have a 1% chance of getting Saber Astolfo. But if you do the Saber class multi, you have a 12.5% chance of getting Saber Astolfo. And that's why I'm just really passionate about the GSSR. Like, that's why I really, really like it. Because I'm like, it is insanely high value. Like, the ability for you to just get a servant that you want is really high. Much higher than normal, which is kind of funny because I pointed this out on stream and I was like, it's only like such real high, like extremely good value because FGO just slaps us around all year. And so finally they're like, here's a really good value banner, you know, 25% chance to 12.5% chance get the servant you want. It's absolutely crazy. But then like, I don't know, like, they just gotta slap us around all year, so we're just like, dang, 12.5%, 1 in 8 chance, that's crazy. So we're gonna talk about the different class banners, and I'll kind of just go over the value I think that each one of these holds. So strap in, sit down, grab your popcorn. This is gonna be a bit of a longer video. I mean, I say that and all my videos have been a little bit longer as of late, but looking at the Saber class banner, this is probably just the best one. If you don't have any of these servants, you just kind of throw a dart here, and all of these servants are useful. Arthur's going to be getting a buff in the future, where he gets just a crazy mana burst skill, where he's able to have like this 3-turn mana. And I guess I'll just show it. Like, for some of these servants that they're getting a buff and you're not familiar on NA, like, his first skill over here is absolutely crazy, because he gets a 3-turn 50% mana burst, and he gets an NP gain skill of 30%, right? So it dramatically helps him out. It just makes him a consistently good servant, and he's got a very good niche over here in super large. So even though he's not like the most popular servant, or like probably not who you want, getting Arthur is not bad. And then, you know, you have Saber Astolfo and Okita, right? I think Okita is like one of the best single target units in the game. She's just really insanely good, especially after her buffs. And I just see Saber Astolfo as like a slightly worse version of Saber Okita, which is not really bad at all, because if you're a worse version, a slightly worse version of one of the best single target quick sabers in the game, then you're doing something right. You know, Saber Astolfo just has a little things that make him a little quirky, but still a very, very good servant to use if you need a good single target saber. Same thing for Okita. I mean, I spoke her praises in the top 5 video. You guys know how good Okita is. Sigurd, while he's not the best servant right now, I see Sigurd as a servant with a lot of potential, right? He has really good foundations laid down for him. So if DW wants to invest a little bit into Sigurd, this man could be absolutely crazy. Like, his damage is already good. He has a 100% crit damage buff. The crit star generation skill could become something good. So, like, you could format that and you could make him a good servant. He has decent survivability with his guts, like, he has the foundations of what a good servant could be. He just needs to have that true potential brought out. So even if you get Sigurd, he's probably the worst servant for you to pull, really, because he's the one that really doesn't have the most immediate use. You are essentially getting a really good investment, right? Because it's going to be very hard for them to not make Sigurd look good in the future if they decide to buff him. Now, I say that now, but then Sigurd's going to get buffed like tomorrow, and then they're going to be like, we gave him a 50% quick mana burst for no reason. And then I'm going to be like, well, I guess I put too much faith in DW, but I see him as a servant with a lot of potential, and I think he has very strong foundations for like just future buffs, you know? Nero Bride, I mean, literally is just baby Castoria, very, very solid servant. Benny Enma, see, here's the thing. Benny Enma fits the role of being like a single target Arts Saber DPS better than Nero Bride. And I know that sounds strange because Nero Bride is also a single target DPS Saber, but Nero Bride fits better because of the way that her skills work, in particular her NP skill. She just functions much better as a support. So if you get her, you know, you really shouldn't be using her as a DPS because you're not getting the most value out of her. And that's, again, another thing we talked about on stream, how just because a servant is like a single target servant or they are an AoE servant doesn't mean you should use them for the traditional purposes, right? Like Koyenskaya, you could use her as a DPS, I guess, if you want, but obviously the best way to use her is as a support type servant. Same thing for Nero Bride. You get the most value out of her, right, making her a, you know, a support type servant. And then Benny Enma is your true, like, single target art servant. Like, she's your single target art saber that you want to use as the offensive servant. And if you have Nero Bride, you can use Nero Bride to buff Benny Enma, right? Like, you can just use them in combination with each other, and it actually works pretty well. Musashi is literally just like a generic good servant. Like, she doesn't really do a whole lot of things special aside from her NP having the special damage mod against alter egos and moon cancers, but she's just generically good, right? Like, just good mana burst, good NP refund mechanic, you know, good pierce invincibility, buff cleanse, just all of that is just generic good stuff. Like, that's all just good stuff that we like to see. Nothing too flashy, not taking any risks like someone like, you know, Sigurd over here. And it just makes her look really, really strong if you get her. And then Shiki gets a lot of flack because of her insta-kill mechanic. And the problem is that people want to use Shiki to farm because, again, they see AoE and they're like, oh, AoE, I gotta use her to farm. But it's like, no, she actually works better as like a multi-target unit to use when it comes to boss fights because she has like all of these like utility skills and her NP is just chocked full of different weird things that she can do. Like, she can insta-kill the trash mobs, charges the entire party's NP gauge by 10%, cleanses the party's debuffs, just a lot of weird stuff that she's doing that's really good and you could take full advantage of in a challenge quest. So that's why Saber, for me, if you don't have any of these servants, it's just a really strong class to summon on because you can just throw a dart at this board, and if you get any one of those servants, you know, you're getting something pretty good, with maybe the exception being Sigurd, as he's more of an investment. Now, when you go to Archers, Archers is basically the same exact thing, but you have a smaller pool of units, right? So that's why, again, if someone was torn between Saber and Archer, I would tell them Archer, just because it's like, well, all of these are really good units. I think the quality is a little bit higher, and they're all just generically good, and there's less of them. So if you specifically wanted like Gilgamesh or Super Orion, you have a higher chance of getting them. Now, all these servants here are very, very strong if you do end up getting any of them. Archer Artoria, well, I do think she definitely needs some buffs, because I know people got really upset with this on the single target art servant video. The thing that people fail to grasp right now, though, is that it's like Artoria Archer can loop really well, and it's like, yes, that's not uncommon now. The problem is that year one, she was crazy because she was one of the few servants that could loop her NP that easily, but we have multiple single target art servants that do the same thing now. So now it's kind of like, okay, you can loop your NP, but what does that do for us, right? And it's like, well, I lower the enemy's, you know, NP gauge by 1, and that's a good effect. I like that on that. It's just she doesn't do enough more, right? Like, she's kind of, again, like a generic good just single target arts DPS servant, right? But she doesn't do enough. Like, she needs more stuff. And I mean, just to demonstrate that, because I know you're already going to get comments of people being like, this is the best single target servant in the game, and those are your FGO boomers, right? But like, it's just she's lacking in additional weird effects, right? Like, she's lacking in different things to do. Like, maybe if we buff this charisma a little bit, maybe if we give her like maybe a crit side to her, like maybe this would, you know, also, you know, give her a 50% crit buff, and then maybe this also drops like 30 stars to play around with. We strengthen this a little bit. She kind of just needs to be a little bit more modernized. Maybe you give her an anti-male gimmick or something along those lines. she really just needs to kind of be brought up. But she's still generically good. Like, this is all just generic good stuff. It's just not quite modern, right? And like her damage is slowly starting to fall off as we go with the game. So like, trust me, I like Saber faces. I want her to be good. I'm just not blinded, right? I'm not blinded by the year one nostalgia of the game, but still a very good servant, right? Now, Ishtar, also very, very good. I don't really feel like I need to talk too much about Ishtar. I think people almost undermine how good Ishtar is, almost. She's kind of like just a complete package. Gilgamesh is another one, like Archer Artori, that I think I kind of need to comment on. That, like, Gilgamesh is really, really good, but I think he also really needs some buffs because this man, why did you send me all the way down here? Gilgamesh is pretty much hard carried by this part of his NP, the bonus damage against all servants, right? And the fact that his NP hits really hard. But like, this man needs new skills. Like, they gave him this buff and they were just like, all right, Gilgamesh, you're fine. And I'm like, dude, give him like crit damage, give him something, give him another 20% battery. Please help my boy out. He definitely needs something. But still, again, doing a lot of regular generic good stuff right here that could use a lot of buffs. And then he just has a really strong NP, right? So again, these are all like really strong options to get. Although I think John Archer and Super Orion are definitely the main targets for the Archer class, right? Because she's going to be phenomenal when Caster Artori comes out as like pretty much the definitive arts looping servant. Although if you're a Zenobia enjoyer like myself, you might disagree. And then Super Orion, I mean, is literally just Arjuna Alter, but with face cards instead. Like, Arjuna Alter does the big damage with the NP. Super Orion just punches people instead and, you know, does more damage. But, you know, people ain't ready to hear that yet. They're not ready to hear that Super Orion's actually on that same tier that he's broken, you know. If you try to flash a Game Press tier list at me, I'm going to laugh in your face. Now, Moriarty also kind of gets swept under the rug. I do want to also comment on him. Not for the same reason of Archer Artoria and Gilgamesh, though. I want to comment on him specifically because of how good his kit is as just like a complete cohesive unit, and just he brings a lot of value as a single target like DPS servant, right? Because this skill in and of itself just brings supreme value, right? This makes him really good for like literally any fight. This skill fixed the problem with his second skill where he had like this 50% battery locked behind the need for 10 stars, but he drops 20 stars now. And then it also fixed his double buff because it gave him the ability to turn the entire party evil for 3 turns, which then means he gives everybody a 40% attack buff except himself, right? And then his NP, just kind of generic good stuff, right? Like, thankfully that activates first, which is even more damage. So he's just like a really, really strong single target option. If you summon on the Archer banner and you see Moriarty pop up, first of all, go read 1.5. He's really sick in 1.5. And then second of all, just know that you're getting a really strong single target DPS servant. He is not bad by any stretch of the imagination. If someone's like, you pulled the old man, you suck, you know, he's a bad servant. No, they are fiends. They are criminals. Don't listen to them. Now, Lancer, aside from being the best value banner here, because again, it's 1 in 4, you have some really solid options. I would say Ereshkigal is the one that you would really, really hope to get because, I mean, need I say more? Her NP buff that she will be getting in about a year and a half, I believe, from when this will come out, because it's been about a few months since she's gotten her buff. So maybe about a year and a half for Ereshkigal to get this buff. Once she gets this, she's going to be disgusting, right? Because they were like, oh, you think Ereshkigal doesn't hit hard enough right now? You know, Lancer Artoria does the big damage, but Ereshkigal is a little more tanky. Well, how about we just say, screw all that, 350% damage against Earth attribute, and then we just make Blessing of Kur absolutely broken. We just make it even better, so it has even more synergy with a third skill. It's just absolutely bonkers how good she gets. Skahawk, I know that people were a little upset that I was kind of being harsh on her, but again, still, I stand by what I'm saying, that it's more valuable to have a servant that can be good for multiple times over. You know, they can be good for like 3 turns in succession and keep up good consistent damage than just one really strong first turn and then their second and third turns kind of fall off. Now, do keep in mind, if you have Scotty, you can kind of fix that problem with Skahawk, because one of the main problems that Skahawk has is that it's really hard for her to get a second NP, right? Because they really, I don't know why, but they put her on crutches when it came to her hits. Like, I don't know why this is 6 and this is 2. It feels like these should have been flip-flopped. I don't know what they were doing with Skahawk. I don't know what weird drugs they were on when they built her, but it really holds her back right now. And again, I know Delightworks said that they do want to work on some of the older servants' hits and kind of reformat them. Please just swap these numbers around and she's like instantaneously infinitely better. But if you have a Scotty, you can fix a lot of the problems with Skyhawk. And again, there are still fights in the game. They're more rare, but there are still fights in the game where you do just want to chunk the enemy for as much damage as you possibly can. Again, they're rare, but when those do come up, people like Skyhawk are absolutely king for that stuff because they can just absolutely chunk somebody for a lot of damage. So, and it is coming back a little bit because again, for that's kind of why Kentoki's kind of sprawling up, and we'll talk about him in a little bit. He's a bit of a different case because of his 50% battery, but those servants that kind of died off in year 2 because it wasn't as good to just be able to do one big NP, and it was like, oh, we want more consistent 3-turn servants. Those servants are starting to kind of make a little bit of a resurgence just because of how DW is kind of doing some of the boss fights and some of the farming nodes. So again, she's right now, not going to be you can't bust right on every single fighter. If you can, it's not the most quote-unquote efficient thing to do, but do keep in mind you can kind of fix a lot of her problems with Scotty. And then Tamamo and Brynhilder, I mean, there's really no easy way to say this. If you do Lancer, you just want one of these two. Tamamo and Brynhilder, I mean, she suffers from a lot of the other Summer 1 servant problems that they just don't buff them at all, and she significantly needs a lot of buffs to make herself better. And then Brynhilder, I kind of feel is very similar to Sigurd in a way, where you have a really solid basis for a servant, but she needs 1 or 2 more buffs to kind of just finish off Brynhilder and just make her a little bit better. Maybe just 1 more buff, right? Maybe just 1 more buff on Brynhilder that's really significant, and you can kind of turn that servant around. So, she's kind of dead in the water if you get her. If you like Tamamo, that's really good because, at least you get to have Tamamo in a swimsuit with a wet shirt. That's pretty dope, I guess, if you like that. And then Brynhilder, you can kind of see as an investment, right? Because if they give Brynhilder 1 more buff, I think she will be really crazy. Then we have Ryder. Ryder, even though it's a 1 in 5 chance, this is probably one of the worst ones for me to summon on, in my opinion, because Reigns, I think, is the high value target here because she's basically a Ryder version of Waver, right? And that's insanely valuable, right? Free 50% battery for 1 ally. That's insane, right? That's super, 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 super good. And her NP and her just overall defensive capabilities are really good in Challenge Quest. So she's definitely the target for Ryder. But if you don't get her and you get Lolly Da Vinci, that's also really good because she's an insanely good looper. Again, Castoria is coming out in a few months. She's going to be very, very good for the whole Castoria meta. Now, that being said, unfortunately, these 3 are still kind of on the wayside. Iskandar's an absolute Chad, he's a bro, but unfortunately, he's kind of from an older time, and I mean year 1 time, but let me explain. So, essentially, the design philosophy, might have been divinely inspired, who knows, but I can't now mess it up. The design philosophy during year 1 was you were either a really hard-hitting servant, but you didn't have a battery, or you were, kind of a weaker servant, right? And you had a 50% battery. Case in point, there was a debate of Iskandar versus Drake, where Iskandar blows Drake's damage out of the water, but he doesn't have a battery, whereas Drake doesn't hit as hard, but she has a 50% battery. As time went on, the battery aged a bit better, and it is absolutely insane now because Koyanskaya literally says, if you don't have a 50% battery, trash. You're not in my optimal farming setups, right? So Iskandar kind of got shafted there, although all I'm saying is that if they can give Ilya a 50% battery with the buff, they can give my man the King of Conquerors, right, a 50% battery, or a 30% on one and a 20% on the other one. Even just the 30% is fine because of a pen skills, right? Just please let him be relevant, please. Just give him a 30% battery. So really, if you get Iskandar, you're just going to be using him for the bro moments, right? He's a cool servant, but not super meta or anything, you know what I'm saying? You gotta just like him for the character, which, to be fair, is not hard to do, because Iskandar is super dope. Ivan is just kind of generic, good boss servant, nothing super special, but unfortunately, Ivan's not really popular with a lot of people, and his kit is just kind of generically good. There's nothing, super insane to it. It's just kind of, fine. So if you get him, it's probably going to be a little anticlimactic. And then, this one right here, Ryder Alter, I mean, it really just depends. Do you have Scotty on your account? Because she's very similar to Skyhawk, right? Where she's able to output a lot of damage on her NP. She can do one really good, strong NP, but then she's really going to struggle to maintain consistent turns after that. Now, Scotty helps those servants out a lot by, basically just force feeding them 50% NP, But if you don't have Scotty, it's going to be a little harsh. You can kind of make it work with like a Scotty and a waiver, but you really want Scotty around because of that like 100% quick buff, that like 200% quick crit damage they both give, you know, the ability to just force 100% NP back into a target. That's all really good. So it's kind of like, if you have Scotty, I think she's really good. If you don't, not so great. And that kind of makes this banner a little hit or miss, because you get either of these two, they're really good. And then if you have Scotty, you have a 3 in 5 chance of getting a really solid servant for your box. But if you don't have Scotty, she's not looking the best. And she's kind of more of just a nice prize to look at if you get her and you don't have Scotty. And that brings us to the caster banner. This is probably going to be the one that a lot of people are going to hit, and I don't blame you. This banner looks absolutely cracked. Now, people forget that they buffed Ilya, like I was just saying a second ago. They gave her a 50% battery, dude. they for whatever reason didn't think Ilya, like, again, the dynamic is like, you're either a servant that doesn't have a big battery and you just hit really hard, or you have the big battery and you don't hit as hard, you know, the whole Sanzo and Ilya dynamic. But then they literally just took that, threw that out the window, and they're like, 50% battery for Ilya, you know, Ilya, just screw it. Like, we're just gonna make her broken. So if you get Ilya, I mean, you're just waiting for that 50% battery, and then she's like one of the hardest hitting casters in the game, and then she's also, you know, got a 50% battery, so she's super versatile in like farming and boss fights, everything. It just makes her cracked, right? Scotty, I don't need to say anything about. I mean, it's literally the premium quick support type servant. Merlin, he's going to be the premium buster support type servant until Koyanskaya comes out, and then even then, Merlin is still debatably better when it comes to fights, because Merlin gives you a lot of sustainability. You know, like Merlin's NP is on a 5-turn loop, so it's not even like the 3-turn loop. He's in there for the long haul, right? He's in there for the 5-turn loop. So when it comes to like harder content and making your servants do like also really good burst damage, Merlin is your king, right? He's still very, very good. Hoping that he gets a buff soon, because like I kind of want Merlin to, you know, reign supreme again. I'm really hoping they buff his first skill and they bring it up to a 30% party-wide battery. I think that'd be sick, but we'll talk about that in a later date. Nerocaster, I think Nerocaster is good, but I think you want to get her at NP2 so she actually hits pretty hard, because at NP1 she's kind of a paper towel. She's kind of like Kiara in that way, that like you really want to get her to NP2 so like her kit kind of fully shines, because Nerocaster wants to output lots of damage, right? She's got the 50% battery, like the 50% attack buff. She wants to slam people into the dirt. But until you get her to NP2, she's not really doing that maximum damage. She's not really leaning into that. So you can get her to work at NP1, but really you want her at NP2. But if you get her here, I mean, then you happen to get her at another GSSR. I mean, there you go. You've cooked. You've got her at NP2, right? Murasaki is very good. I've had a video on Murasaki, and she's, you know, just a decent, not even decent, just a very good AoE caster. Very, very solid. Very good damage mods. The only one that's kind of a dud here is Da Vinci. And even then, Da Vinci's just got like generic good stuff on all of her skills, like 50% battery, the Pierce invincibility, the decent survivability with the guts. It's just the only thing that's kind of annoying is that she only has 1 hit on the NP. And so that kind of means you're relegated to really only using her in challenge quests, where she does do pretty good, right? Like, she's a fine option to bring if you want to bring her to challenge quests, because the Pierce defense, the Pierce invincibility, and then the future buff where she gives the entire party a like an arts buff over here is just very fine. Like, I say she's the dud out of the group, but even then, she's still fine. Like, if you get Da Vinci, if you need to pull out an AoE caster for whatever reason that's not named Nidochris, you can pull out Da Vinci. Assassin, probably one of the ones I would try to avoid, because really the only one here that I'd be like, that's a servant that's really, really good right there, is Kama. Cleopatra's decent when it comes to AoE fights. I mean, she's got good sustain there. You don't really want to try to use her for farming. She doesn't really do enough damage to farm, but if you want to bring her to like challenge quests and like longer fights like that, she does really well there. Shuten Doji, she kind of has the same problem as Da Vinci because she has the 1-hit NP, but again, very good when it comes to longer fights, because she just says, screw it, I'm just going to slap you with literally every debuff known to man. You know, has the AoE charm, plus the guts to keep herself alive, plus they gave her a battery, and she's got the Oni charisma. You know, she's really just packing a lot of like generic good stuff, right? Just very, very good things that you'd want a boss killing servant to have. But she's also really good against numerous enemies. But again, probably not a servant that a lot of people are like, ooh, I really need Shuten Doji, because it's not very common for you to need an AoE assassin. That's probably why these three aren't as popular. If Semiramis had like a natural 50% battery, she'd probably be a little more popular. She's fine with Koyanskaya, but again, there's not really finding yourself needing an AoE assassin, right? Like it's very rare for you to be like, man, I really wish I had this AoE assassin right now, then I'd really be cooking. Because if you're going to be farming like riders with a quick or an art servant, you're probably just going to use like Space Ishtar, Musashi, or you're going to be using like Lancelot for quick, Dante's for quick. You're probably going to be using somebody else, right? Like just like a general like Berserker or neutral class servant, because you want to avoid using assassins because of their really bad damage mod. If you didn't know, every servant in the game has like a damage mod like built into their class, so like certain classes will do more damage than others. If you've like looked on the wiki and been like, why are some of these servants like not hitting as hard as they should be? It's because of their class modifier. So you have that. MHX is actually really good. It only took them buffing literally everything on her kit, but she's actually a really good, just generic good single target servant. Very solid. If you get her, I wouldn't be sad. Although if you don't have Scotty, you're probably not going to be pulling her out all that often, so then she might kind of be a dud. But she's a cute servant, so at the very least, you got that going for him. Or her. Him? Her? You know? Sorry, I was thinking of Old Man on the Mountain over here, Mr. King Hassan. Yeah, he's just a good solo servant. Like, especially after he gets his buff, where he just gets, like, the big, like, mega buster buff that he can, like, double stack on himself. He just gets even better at being able to solo things. I mean, he's just a very reliable servant. Like, soloing servants are better when your account isn't as good, because like usually when you have a built-up account, you know, you can already just kind of beat things anyway. But so if you're like more of a newer player, or you just really like King Hassan because he's a big edgy Dark Souls man, I mean, he can help out in your newer account by just being able to solo a lot of things. And if you already have a more built-up account, you can make him look good with things like Merlin and stuff to kind of make him hit a bit different. Because King Hassan is one of the more rare solo servants that doesn't mind if he's with a group of people or if he's not with a group of people, right? Like, you have people like Ku Alter that kind of want to be alone to maximize the amount of damage that they're going to be doing. But, you know, Hassan over here is like, I could have buddies and I could not have buddies. I don't really care. It could go either way. Berserker, look, all of these guys are good, right? Like Hijikata and Raiko are probably like the weakest two here, even though they're both not really bad. Like, they're both just kind of like generic good berserkers. Like, if I was gonna like think of the staple for like what just a decent single target and a decent AoE berserker looked like, it would be Raiko and probably Hijikata over here. Because like, look, just like good star weight, good crit damage. Probably need to buff the Buster Mana Burst over here to not make it 30%, but you know, good Buster good damage, you know, an evasion. And then the third skill is going to bring her like some really good special damage mods, right? Like, these are just, you know, good people that she can hit. Not too high, but they are pretty broad things. She can hit a lot of stuff with that. And then her NP basically just works as a star bomb because of this right here, dropping 100% crit star gen on a 7-hit NP. And, you know, this is kind of a dud. I don't know why they did that. I don't know why they were just like, yeah, you know what, bro, that's what she needs. She needs to not be taking crits because she's probably still going to die in one hit anyway because she's a Zerg. But, you know, just good things that she's doing here. And the same thing goes for Hijikata. Hijikata's often like, oftentimes just like downplayed a lot. Like, people just think he's kind of garbage, but he does do, you know, he does some things, you know. I'm talking about like, maybe if this was 30%, you get a little more respect, but that's still a party-wide buster buff, you know. He's still got the debuff cleanse, he's still got the guts that scales pretty well with his weird wanna be at 1 HP damage mod thing he's got over here. You know, he's got stuff going for him. You know, he's got the crit damage. I don't know why this is tied to the HP formula as well. That's a little weird, but you know, you want like a kind of a quirky, decent single target guy. You got Hijikata, right? But honestly, everybody's going on this for Arjuna Alter. If you need to see why Arjuna Alter is good, if you don't know for whatever reason, literally this man just chops anybody down in the game and just obliterates them in like 1 to 2 hits. Like, he cheeses so many fights in the game and he's gotten literally no other rate up, right? And like, look, like, you can go down here and it's like all of his rate ups are literally just lucky bag summoning. It's like, yep, he comes out, lucky bag, lucky bag, lucky bag, lucky bag, lucky bag. Like, he never comes out. Like, we all thought he was going to get another raid up for the Vitra, like, Santa Carna Christmas event, because he's a main character in the story there, but literally, like, this is his only raid up that he's ever had, and, like, coming up on 3 years on the JP version of the game. It's absolutely disgusting, right? Like, the thing that's weird is that I'm like, Arjuna Alter is like really good, but he's not that broken that he doesn't need a second raid up in 3 years. Like, I don't know why Super Orion gets another raid up and he doesn't, because like Super Orion is just as busted. Like, he's literally the face card version of Arjuna Alter. So I have no idea why DW is like, we can't give him another rate up, it'll break the game. Like, I have no idea why they're doing that. But again, if you can snag him here, he's really good. Doesn't matter what your box looks like, this guy's gonna obliterate things. He's really good. Kentucky, as I was talking about up here with Skahawk, there are like more farming nodes now that are getting a little bit odd, where it's like a 3-1-3, and that just means if you're a newer player, it's like you have 3 enemies, 1 enemy, 3 enemy, or like 2 enemies, 2 enemies, 3 enemies, or 2-1-3. Like, just the placement gets a little weird. And it's really good to just have somebody like Kentucky, who has a 50% battery, does really good damage. You can just have him sit there, Golden Spark, bonk him, plug suit him out, and farm as per usual, right? It's really good to have servants like that. MHX Alter is just literally the best single target quick servant in the game. Like, she literally just obliterates everything with double Scotty. It's like not even close. She's helped out a lot by the fact that she's a Berserker, and you can literally just bring her to anything and she just obliterates them. They gave her a special damage mod against like all the good guys, and that made her even more insane. So yeah, absolutely crazy. If you pull her, like if you don't have Scotty, she kind of suffers a little bit. She has the same problem as like Skahawk and Maid Alter over there, but man, if you have Scotty, or you can bring your friend Scotty and like a waiver or something, she will definitely cook for you. And then obviously Musashi over here is going to be really good if you're able to get Castoria. That's kind of like the whole stipulation with her, that if you're able to get Castoria, or maybe you have Nero Bride and you can bring a friend Castoria, she's going to be looking really good as like just a general farmer for you. And then we have the extra class banners, which I'm not gonna lie, I'm just gonna save you guys some time. I would just avoid this banner entirely. Like, unless BB, Mel, Okita Alter are your absolute favorite must-have characters, I would avoid this banner like the plague. Like, this just looks terrible to me. Like, I'm not gonna lie, this looks bad. What would I do? Maybe I would like move BB over here, and then maybe move like the Avengers down here. I don't even know. Like, maybe bump the foreigners up there, the Avengers down here. Just mishmash it in some way, because it's just like, I don't know. But I get what they're doing, because they want the ruling Avengers. I don't know. Maybe take these 3 and trade them out for the 4 Avengers. I just don't know. But like, this just looks like a banner you should avoid like the plague, because Okita Alter, even after 2 buffs, still needs something to kind of make her complete. She's really just still kind of coming up lacking a little bit when it comes to just really all departments. She needs a little bit more help, and DW is kind of being very slow and kind of cautious in the way they buff her, because if they, like, literally all they would have to do is just change her NP to quick, or give her a skill that can change her NP to quick for like 3 turns, and she's absolutely broken. And I think that's what they're trying to avoid. They're trying to like keep her, have the like identity of like a buster servant, but not break her, because again, she's got like, she literally does so much right now, but it's like it needs like one more piece to like glue it all together, right? And then she just becomes broken. So right now, and for like the next 2 years, she's still going to be kind of in this more like midish area, right, where she's just not popping off as she should be. But again, kind of just waiting for like one last buff to kind of complete that. I mean, King Protea over here, I mean, aside from being like pretty cute, you know, you got giant kaiju lady over here, right? The problem with King Protea that I have is that she really wants to do like this slow burn style of gameplay, where you just like slowly get to build up and get stronger and stronger until you're just basically immune to everything. And that's really fun to do, but it's like, again, if you have a box that can just beat something in 3 turns, and unless you really like King Protea, you're probably not just going to sit there and stall it out for that long to get like all these stacks built up. Probably not going to do that. So again, kind of just more like, I mean, like, if you like King Protea, you know, pop off. You can use her for that. You can get that experience a few times, but not somebody I would be like, oh, you got to summon on this banner for her. Kiara, unfortunately, if you don't have Kiara already, and you get Kiara, I'm really sorry, because Kiara is really good, but she is very notorious for being a potato, and that you really want to get her to at least NP2 so she can actually do this thing called damage. Melta Lilith, just because she just has like a generic package when it comes to her skills and her NP. She actually is kind of one of the few people here that kind of breaks out and kind of like stands out as being a really good servant. Funny that she's in the middle as well. The thing though is that there's also the issue with the alter ego class, right? The alter ego class is one of the classes that it scales better with the how bad your box is, right? Like, as your box gets better and better, you don't really need the alter ego class as much, because you have other classes that can finally start like performing better than they do, right, at the role. Like, if you're using an alter ego as an assassin, you'd be like, oh, okay, I'm using you know, Okita Ultra is my AoE assassin, or then you get like Semiramis, right? Then you get Semiramis who just performs better, right, as an AoE assassin. Or you're just like, hey man, I need like Kiara to be my anti-caster lady, right? But then you're just like, oh, I got Da Vinci Lolly, right, who just blows her out of the water at NP1. So it's like, once you start building up your box, they get a little bit better. Melta Lilith is really the only one that I kind of think breaks out of that thing. I think it really sucks that she's an alter ego, because I think she could have been broken if she was like a Lancer. Case in point, look at the summer version of her. But like, if she was like a single target Lancer, it would have been over. But if you do have to summon on this because Melt is your favorite, and you get Milk, you got off lucky. Now, Summer BB is very good if you want to be a 5-head, because that's really what Summer BB is used for. She's used for like big brain plays and like big brain 3-turn comps. If you're not doing that and you just want her because, you know, you want BB, just wait for the free-to-play BB to come back around, and that'll scratch your itch of having a BB in your account. Because if you're not going to take advantage of like the whole, you know, third skill gimmick that she has going on, it's just not worth pursuing. And then foreigners, I mean, Abigail's kind of a wet sock. Like, I'm not gonna lie, Abigail needs some buffs, dude. They need to stop leaving Abigail to dry and give her something, bro. And then Hokusai over here, again, Hokusai I think has a really like strong foundation. I kind of outlined some of the issues I have with her gameplay in the video I did in her just not too long ago. But I think it's very fun to play with Hokusai, but unfortunately a lot of the times the fun servants aren't really like the meta crazy servants, because like I was explaining on stream, it's better if a servant is just like, I get big Ooga Booga 50% mana burst for 3 turns, or I get big Ooga Booga 50% NP gain for 3 turns, and not like, oh, I get a 20% or like a 30% buster buff every time I get hit. And it's like, oh, well, yeah, you could get higher. You could get to like, let's say like a 90% buster mana burst, right, you know, for 3 turns if you got hit 3 times, but it's not as consistent, right, because you need to be hit, and you know, you can't just have it immediately. And, you know, you want those consistent servants. So is Hokusai fun to play with? Yeah, I use her all the time. Is she one of the best servants in the game? Not necessarily, right? Because unfortunately, fun and like unique and quirky servants don't always, you know, equate to being like the best servants in the game. But she is fun to play with, I'll give her that. And if they buff her in a way to kind of like maybe adapt her skills a little bit to keep the style of gameplay that they want, where you can either switch from being like a better art servant or a better DPS servant. Again, if you want more of like what I'm talking about right now, go check out the Hokusai video that I uploaded like a week or 2 ago. Like, if you wanted to like give her a buff or something that kind of helps her out with that, I think that'd be pretty good. But unfortunately right now, this just kind of looks like the worst banner to summon on. Please avoid that one like the plague. This one's not too bad, because after all of Shiro Amakusa's, you know, different buffs that he's gotten, he's basically a borderline must-summon servant. Literally, the only negative thing you could say about him is that he's a ruler. Everything else about him is absolutely crazy. Bunny Artoria is cute. You could say that about her. She, like, you can use her for Koyenskaya looping, but, you know, you're better off using other servants. Like, why are you using a ruler to farm? It's kind of, like, weird to do that. I mean, I would do it because I like Ruler Artoria a lot, and I'm grailing mine to level 100 as we speak right now, but, I mean, I wouldn't recommend other people to do the same thing. So, I mean, she's a nice consolation prize if you summon on this, because there are other just, like, good servants here. Like, Chi Wong's the best solo servant in the entire game. Holmes gets downplayed a lot, but it's really just, like, people look at Holmes' skills, and they're like, I don't know if this servant's all that good. Which, to be fair, I look at Holmes' skills, and I'm like, this is kind of wiggity whack. But then you get to his NP, and it's literally all worth it. Like, 50% crit damage to the entire party, and you make your entire party just absolute insane maniacs for a turn. And you make the enemy just pee-pee poo-poo weak. So his NP's kind of cracked. So I'm assuming that's why the skills are just a little weird, where they're just like, I guess we'll have him reduce, like, well, this is actually better, right? But they were like, I guess we'll give him an NP seal and 20 stars and, I don't know, a dodge to keep himself alive, and we'll give him a 50% arts mana burst for some reason to kind of help him get his NP back. I'd be like, dude, just scrap that and give him a 50% battery instead, because this is the good stuff about Holmes. Like, this is what you want. But if you get him, try him out. He's really fun to use. Try him out. Dante's is very good if you have Scotty. If not, he's kind of going to be sitting in your box kind of lonely. Jolter's really good, just kind of still generic beat stick buster servant, but you can still get some pretty good use out of her, especially after her buff where she just drops 30 stars to play around with on her NP. So not only does she hit harder, but she's like, hey, the stars that I wanted to gen are all here, and now I'm going to smack you with big crit damage. Space Ishtar, don't really need to talk about Space Ishtar all that much. She's not very good right now because she really struggles to farm with Scotty, but if you get her now, you can use her with Space Ishtar, or not Space Ishtar, with Castoria when she comes out in a few months. So then you just beat up everything in the game and you, I don't know, you just win. Like, you just won. Congratulations. You get Space Ishtar, you've won. Because then all you need is Castoria. And then Mao Nobu, I mean, I'm still salty at the buff that they gave her. They should have given her the crit damage, bro. They know what they did. They know what they did. They shafted Mao Nobu. But she's a good beat stick, right? If you want to look at her as like AoE Jalter minus the crit damage, that's a fine thing to look at her at. So I hope this long and lengthy video helped you guys out. I mean, also do keep this in mind, by the way. Keep this in mind. These are the units that are going to be scaling on rate up, by the way. Like, and I think this is very, very important, right? Because if you want, like, BB and Kiara, right, are like the only, are like two servants that I would say that are like if you want to get NP2 Kiara, or you want Summer BB for 5-head plans, you can get them from the regular, like, rate up over there. Like, you could summon for these two, and you could just try to get NP2 Kiara, or just try to get your first copy of Summer BB, and just be done with it and not to summon on that at all, right? I think that's important. If you want Gilgamesh, which I know a lot of people probably do want Gilgamesh, and you already have someone like Super Orion, you don't got to summon on this, right? If Skahawk is the only person you wanted here because you already had a Rescue Doll or something, you don't even got to summon on this, right? Because they're going on their own rate up. Keep this in mind. This rate up will be here, right? If you are only going to summon on the Ruler one because Chi Shi Huang is the best solo servant in the entire game, you don't have to summon on this. You can go for him on the rate up over here, right? And keep in mind, this is out for like 9 days, right? And the summoning campaign is going to be out for just a little bit longer than that. So you'll have a chance to hit every single one of these servants just about. Wait, yeah, just about, like, because this is all after, right? Like, this is all after. So you'll hit just about every servant before the lucky bag goes away. So use that to your advantage if you want to just, like, test your luck to try to see if you can get Chi Shi Huang over here before you summon on the lucky bag. Please do that. We gotta be smarter than DW, right? We gotta use our big brains and get around them, right? Because you don't want to just be giving up the GSSR, which is like the most valuable thing, like, in the entirety of the year. So, like, all right, boys, I hope, like, this helped you guys out. Use them big brains. Let me know what you're going for in the comments down below. I'm kind of curious to see if there's going to be any, like, common consensus. Like, is everybody going for Caster for Scotty? Or is everybody going for, like, Berserker for Arjuna Alter? Or are there some weirdos? Like, am I going to get some comments where someone's like, actually, ZTL, I'm actually going on Assassin because I want Cleopatra. If I see that person, they're probably the dude that pours the milk in before they pour in the cereal. That's all I'm saying. But with all that being said, I will see you guys in the next video. I need to go give my throat a rest because, you know, I've been here for like 300 years. But yeah, with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. You guys have such a nice day. Peace. Late, guys.